Hi, welcome. My name is Angelique, and today I'm going to be talking about the moon in Sagittarius astrology placement. If you have this placement or you're just a student of astrology looking to gather some more insight or knowledge, this episode could do a good job of an overview of this placement. So, moon in Sagittarius, the moon is all about our intuition, our emotions, but also our childhood, especially our inner child, our mother, our parents growing up. So, this episode is going to touch on what the inner child of someone with moon in Sagittarius might have experienced and give some practical, grounded advice. So, if it's your first time listening, I have been a student of astrology for over 30 years, and I have a background in counseling, mental health, and psychology. So I really love to dive deep, just get to the root of what is going on. And this can be psychologically, but also emotionally, physically, energetically. There's so many ways we can do that, especially with astrology. Now, astrology can be used for future prediction, but it's also a great tool of how to understand ourselves, our world, our relationships. So I like to bring astrology down from the heavens, from the cosmos, and really ground it. What practical advice can we glean about ourselves to make our lives more balanced, our relationships more balanced, more fulfilling? So that's a snapshot of what I do. And so today I'm going to use mythology, symbolism, elements, and kind of explore this placement through that lens to kind of get some ideas, see what's really going on here. So I always like to start with the sign as it relates to mythology to just give a breakdown. So the emotions ascribed to the sign of Sagittarius, we would do that by looking at the planet ruler. And the planet that rules Sagittarius is Jupiter. Now, I'm not going to go in depth about Jupiter as a god too much. If you would like to maybe learn more about that, I have an episode with Sun and Sagittarius where I go more into the personality of the god. But here I'm just going to be looking more about the emotions and what we can connect to. So Jupiter as a planet is named for the Roman god of the same name, and he is really known for being a leader, but someone that controlled borders. So he was able to work globally with people, so not on a smaller scale. So Jupiter's sun is Mercury, which rules more like local traffic, local travel. Jupiter is more expansive, wants to go to the far reaches of the world. And so how we can relate that to emotions is somebody who is very expansive, someone who's very open-minded. But Jupiter was also a spiritual leader. So this is somebody who has Sagittarius placement and might be more open and inclined to philosophical ideas, spiritual ideas, religion. But as long as it's open-minded and can help further humanity. So there needs to be a lot of freedom. Jupiter energy doesn't like to be confined. It doesn't like only doing one thing one way, or being told there's only one way to do something. Jupiter also is a teacher, so loves to share information and help people grow, help themselves grow. So in a placement like the moon, this Sagittarius, this energy, Jupiter is going to make someone want to feel more free-spirited. They might have a more cheerful demeanor, or their emotions might be inspiring to others. They might just have a more open way they go about connecting with other people. There might not be as much guardedness from the outset. And we'll talk about that a little bit, but they might seem to be emotional risk takers. They might be someone who will laugh in the face of danger. But the downside to this is they might be someone who struggles to take emotions seriously, both themselves and other people. So feeling a certain way about something, especially if it's more negative or it's more maybe judgmental, can be hard for them to deal with. And because Sagittarius energy doesn't like to be combined, there can be a tendency to run away because of that freedom. Like, no, I don't want to stay and talk about my feelings for 3 hours. They might just flee. This is an energy where they could just stop talking to somebody, ghosting, if we're going to use that lexicon, that word. And this is that placement that could do it. Just swiftly moving on, because staying and talking about something, especially if they don't feel connected to it, is going to be a challenging information. So these are the people that if something is not bringing them a lot of joy and not bringing them this allowance to be free-spirited, they might just move on. So that is the dichotomy here with this placement, because it makes the emotions here more diffuse, hard to pin down. Because when we look at the elements here, the Sagittarius is a fire energy and moon is a water energy. So this fire wants to be bold, wants to be bright, wants to just expand and reach further and further without being hemmed in. Now, when it's combined to water, what we know is water snuffs out fire completely. Like, that's the best way to get fire to stop, but it completely eliminates it. So moon and Sagittarius, when we have this together in a person, they might really want to avoid getting deeply connected, wanting to talk about deeper feelings or feelings that are maybe a little more hidden, things that aren't as bright and cheerful and passionate, because that has a dampening effect to them. And they don't want to be dampened. They want to be free. They want to be that horse that's running through a field, just very free. And as we know, emotions can be heavy. They can be difficult. It can be like not very fun, especially if we're talking about something like your childhood or something traumatic, or just even having conflict in a relationship. That can get really heavy, and sometimes it can take a while to move through a conflict with another person, especially a partner. And so that is where we see the running. And they can even do that with themselves. The moon and Sagittarius person might not want to do that inner work, to sit with their emotions, to be still. So something like meditation could be really hard for them in a sense, because they have to sit still, sit with their emotions. They can't be doing an activity or learning or running or traveling. They have to sit still, and that can be really hard for them. So there might be a lot of emotional blind spots with someone with moon and Sagittarius, and it also might be difficult for them to have a long-term partner or children because of that, because you have to be present and you might have to take things slow. You might have to have some conflicts and get over it, and someone with moon and Sagittarius might find that too difficult to do. So it depends on the person. Obviously, it's not everybody, but that can be a tendency if they're not tapped in to what they really want. Now, somebody with moon and Sagittarius placement could have a long-term partner, friends, close friends, family, but it might have to be structured in a way that is not seen as traditional. So it could be harder to find that person, that partner, to find that family union, because someone with moon and Sagittarius might be wanting to move a lot, physically and internally, just might not want to sit still. So that can be hard. they would have to meet somebody who understands that or is on that same wavelength. Now, when it comes to childhood, Moon in Sagittarius as a child most likely had an experience where they had a parent or a mother that maybe was more closed off, more traditional, and how they wanted the family or the child to express themselves. So this could look like having a very strict religious household or just having a very conservative household, or growing up in a culture where your home and your family needed to be very traditional. Nothing of other religions, cultures, or other people was really in accepted. That is very common for people who have this placement. Something else could be that they just weren't taken seriously. So their emotions, if they, so for example, if a child cried when they were upset, if they had this placement, is very typical that a parent or a mother might have not taken that seriously, might have tried to lighten the mood by making fun of it, or might have just ignored it all altogether and just kind of didn't really sit with it, didn't talk about it. Just so those are two options that could have been possible. Obviously, everybody has different experiences, and you have a different, unique natal chart. So it's going to depend on your individual upbringing, but that's very likely that there might have been um, a control or just an inability to visit new places or learn about new people or different cultures or different religions. So it was either mandated, or somebody was very closed-minded, or that it just was not an option. Like, it's expensive to go to new places or travel, and so maybe that was just something that was upbringing. So we see this in a person who grows up. They might have a really hard time committing to close personal relationships, or they have these close personal relationships, but it's difficult for them to be intimate or to validate their emotions or the emotions of the other people. So it can go either of those ways. So might see someone who has been Sagittarius growing up, that based on their upbringing, they might they might shrug off having a close emotional relationship or a close personal relationship because it's too difficult, it's too challenging, it leads to conflict, or they feel that their freedom is impeded. Now, security for someone who has been Sagittarius really comes from being able to explore and engage in activities and learning to find ways to validate their emotions and be intimate with others. This can happen more easily if you have a relationship where they are free loving too. Maybe you travel together. Maybe you want to be, or maybe they don't need a lot of deep, deep talks. I mean, you can be intimate, but maybe they are more cheerful and open and free. So, Moon and Sagittarius, we could see people like this who are in open relationships more so because they can kind of have that sense of freedom but still connect to other people. Healing the inner child when you have Moon Sagittarius can really benefit from anything new or that's not grounded in a traditional boring reality. So maybe that's learning new languages. That's something different from you. Visiting new places, connecting with people from different parts of the world, different cultures, different religions. Taking long extended hikes, even if you can't travel. Maybe you find a park or a new place in your neighborhood and you just walk it. Someone with Moon and Sagittarius could also feel really secure with taking part of any sci-fi or fantasy books or films. So Lord of the Rings, X-Files, anything that is different than their experience. And with Sagittarius is really going to be what's different than where you grew up. So if you grew up in a culture that really valued folklore, that might not be what's different for you. And so it's going to depend on where you grew up, but whatever is very different or new or open than the culture you grew up in, the household you grew up in, can make you feel emotionally insecure, can kind of ground you, and that is a good way to heal. Okay, that's Moon and Sagittarius. Thank you so much for listening. If this resonated for you, you could leave a comment. I'd love to hear how this came up for you. But otherwise, thank you again so much and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye bye.